Hey there, and welcome to our web class tonight. I am so excited to have you with me today. We are going to cover the top 5 questions you need answers to before studying iridology. This is an introduction to constitutional iridology. There are many kinds of iridology out there, and are many different philosophies when it comes to iridology. Our focus today is going to be on constitutional iridology, and I just need to get my screens organized here. There we go. So why do you need this? Well, that's going to be determined by who you are and what you do. If you're a registered nurse or a naturopath or herbalist or a nutritionist, you might feel it in your gut that there's got to be a better and faster way to assess your clients, right? To get a scope as to what direction you need to go. You know, you could help so many more people if you didn't have to spend so much time wading through intake questionnaires. Or maybe you just want to feel more confident assessing your clients and making recommendations. That sound like you? Why am I passionate about sharing this info with you about teaching iridology? Well, my original training 45 years ago was in North American iridology. My practice for the last 35 years has been constitutional. I had become frustrated with the diagnosing part of the North American style of iridology. It was stressed in that style of iridology. Then, just as I was about to quit doing iridology altogether, that's when I was blessed to learn about constitutional iridology. I truly love teaching constitutional iridology in a very holistic way. So, in the last 35 years, I have added so many different credentials to my skill set, and I incorporate all of them into my teaching. Want to put this out as just a heads up for you. The next live course for the Dynamic Iridology Assessment System will be starting on January 28th. This is taught virtually through webinars like this. And I'll give you more details towards the end of our time together today. And so just keep that in mind. January 28th is our next start date for the fully mentored certification preparation course. If you are a health professional, a herbalist, nutrition coach, naturopath, chiropractor, medical doctor, registered nurse, so think of that as someone who's got a college level anatomy and physiology course already under their belt, and you're interested in learning iridology, you've come to the right place. If you're not a health professional, or if you don't have that A&P course already, but you want to learn iridology, reach out to me and I will connect you with the course that I recommend for getting your A&P done so that you can learn iridology at a much deeper level. Just before we start looking at eye photos, I want to give you context for why I'm sharing this info with you. And this is what one of my recent grads said, and she said it very well. This is Joyce Lee. She's a certified esthetician, a clinical aromatherapist, a chartered herbalist, and a nutritional consultant. I took an iridology course from another school a few years ago, but I was left feeling inadequately trained with no confidence in the material or my abilities to perform accurate assessments. Upon completion of Judith's course, I feel very confident in my abilities and excited to offer iridology services to my clients. This course is an incredible value, highly recommended. I so appreciate her saying that. Why did I get into holistic healing? Well, I started studying in 1979. I was just a few years out of high school. I'd done a couple of years of university, and I was being drawn away from what I was studying in university. So I was able to connect with a local practitioner who was lay trained, and I worked with her for a year. And in 1981, I started doing clinical work on my own. I've studied iridology under 8 different iridology teachers, 3 different styles. I was one of the first 3 in the world to become a level 3 certified iridologist with IPA. To date, there are only, I think, 10 of us. I've been, as I said, in the industry since about 1981. I've authored several books that I've self-published and self-distributed. And they, everything from Pregnancy Naturally, Herbal Birth Kit Handbook. I've written my own textbook for the Dynamic Iridology Assessment System course, which has been approved by IPA as being a valid textbook, although it is only available to my enrolled students. I've also created and taught many courses in herbology, nutrition, prenatal classes. I was a certified prenatal educator for a while, and of course, iridology courses. IPA has us upgrade our hours every 2 years. I guess I'm coming up for mine pretty quick here in just a few months. And so this just proves that IPA makes us stay up to date on the latest research. It makes us be on our toes all the time. We have to not necessarily recertify, but prove that we are doing ongoing continuing education. So stay with me to the end of today's mini class, and where I will share with you more information about the Dynamic Iridology Assessment System course. I'm also a nutrition professional affiliated with these two professional organizations here in Canada, and I'm a professional herbalist as well. So the questions we are going to answer today are: what is constitutional iridology? Why does it work? What can it teach us? Why should health professionals use constitutional iridology? And how should it be used in clinical practice? So what is it? Well, iridology, pretty self-explanatory, is the study of the iris of the eye. So the study of the colored part of the eye. And so constitutional iridology is a little different from the North American or Jensenian styles and from the emotional styles that are being taught. And I'm not saying there's anything wrong with the emotional styles especially, but constitutional focuses on the constitution of the body. Modern iridologists often have a background in sclerology as well, and that studies the white of the eye, right? So we are looking, ultimately, when we learn constitutional iridology in the dynamic iridology course, we're going to learn about pupil shape and size and what it means when there's flattenings or when it's any lips or things like that. When it's small, when it's large, we're going to learn about lots of things about the iris. We're going to learn about the nutritive zone, how well people are genetically programmed to digest their foods. We're going to learn about all the different aspects of the body that are reflected in the iris. And then we will also correlate sclera markings to symptoms and what we see in the iris. So why does this work? Why does constitutional iridology work? The eyeball is the largest neural receptor in the body. It is actually the end of a nerve, and it is directly connected via nerve pathways to the brain. The iris itself has 28,000 nerve endings, and we don't even know what they all do yet. We do know that the eyeball develops embryologically at the same time the nervous system does. If there's a challenge in the body that the brain knows about, there is usually a marker in the iris of some kind. Now, it's not that one problem has one specific marker. It's that a problem in a certain area of the brain or the nervous system has a marker in a certain place in the iris. And then when we see that, we need to be asking questions about it. What the eyes show us, what those irides show us, are challenges or inherent potentials. They are not guarantees of a problem. So we're not going to look at an eye and say, you have this problem. Instead, we're going to ask, what would our client like help with? What are the symptoms? Then we're going to look at the eyes, and we are going to see what are the inherent markings we see there. That will help us to understand why the client has the symptoms. Then we can look in the sclera and at the pupil as well to add further validation. And then we can begin crafting our recommendations. Does that make sense? That we're not naming diseases here. We're understanding the processes in the body so that we can do an excellent job of making recommendations. We never use this to name disease, that's for sure. So what can iridology teach us? Well, today, again, we're going to focus on the iris itself. The irides teach us about inherent predispositions. So think of this as epigenetics. The irides teach us about the epigenetic predispositions in the body. They tell us, for example, if the person tends to be very reactive. Do they spend a lot of time in fight or flight? Or is this someone who's more laid back? Is this someone who internalizes stress? Is this someone whose liver wants to run the show? Is this someone whose kidneys want to run the show and impact everything else in the body? So this set of eyes in particular tells us that this person spends a lot of time reacting in that sympathetic nervous system, the fight, flight, or freeze. She internalizes her stress and can get really wound up over things, has a hard time letting go of it. So, when I see someone like this, we're going to talk about ways she can let go of stress. Does she need to journal? Does she need to do some self-talk? Does she maybe need some supplements to strengthen her adrenal glands and thereby strengthen her resilience? This person, based on the colors we see in her eyes as well, is very predisposed to having her liver run the show. Now, you already know that the liver does over 500 different jobs. It can get into anybody's business, right? It is a busy body. It's the clearinghouse in the body. So the liver could create symptoms for the immune system. It might create some blood issues, might create energy issues, maybe allergies, hormonal issues, digestive issues. So this is where we have to really understand anatomy and physiology in order to connect what we see in an iris with what the client's symptoms are. We do not do coloring book iridology. We do not match one marker to one problem. We actually want to see 2 or 3 or 4 markers that are all giving us information about one problem to help us understand why that problem exists, because each of the markers gives us a different type of information. So this client came to me with recurring bladder infections and allergies. So her eyes very clearly suggest that she has an increased predisposition to allergies and infections because her liver may not want to do its jobs properly. And that's a constitutional assessment. This is not a surface level thing. Her liver really wants to be affecting a lot of things. So giving her infection fighting herbs is going to be a Band-Aid remedy. Yes, it might take care of this bladder infection, but that's not going to help her 3 weeks or 4 weeks from now when she gets another one. Instead, we need to go through the liver and use constitutional remedies. So one of the remedies that I like to work with, one of the herbs I like to work with when I'm doing liver and when it's liver and infections is I like to use golden seal. It is a bitter herb. Now, it is on the endangered list, so I don't use this with very many people. I'm very particular about who gets it, and I use it from ethical producers so that I know I'm not, getting some that shouldn't be had. Golden seal is a bitter herb. It works well with getting the liver on track. But, and because I'm getting the liver on track, and because golden seal also has a certain element of immune building, infection fighting, I probably don't need to do anything beyond comfort measures for the bladder. The other thing is the bladder is only the messenger. So the interesting thing about this client is I only see her about once every 4 or 5 years. And when I saw her this time, she'd been away for a few years. And, that means she was probably doing fairly well. They usually call me when things are starting to fall apart again. They trust me to be able to help them fix them, to give them remedies that will work, right? And that's what I teach my students to do, is to figure out what will work best. And so she came into me in a panic because she was breaking out in hives all over her body. Unfortunately, she waited too long to call me. She ended up in an urgent care clinic, and she ended up on a prescription of prednisone before she actually called me. Had she reached out to me at the very first sign of hives, because she's had them before, So she knows what's going on with them. We might have been able to short circuit the problem with herbs and supplements. Constitutional iridology does not enable us to diagnose. We cannot give disease names. It is best used as a guide to where the issues may be, and it guides our questions and informs our suggestions. Now, have you noticed in everything that I've said today, I've not said anything like this person is toxic, this person needs to cleanse, this person has a congested liver, these eyes look unhealthy. Those are not helpful things to say. We can't possibly know those things from looking at the irides alone. We need to have a conversation with the client to understand what their symptoms are and what the person's already doing for their health or against their health. And we need all of that information to assess these eyes properly and to make good recommendations. So iridology, again, teaches us much as we look at these eyes and we see where the colorette is placed. This teaches us this client is prone to constipation and probably very poor energy production. So when I see these eyes, I'm not going to tell her that she should be constipated. She's probably constipated. She probably has low energy, because she might have already figured out how her body works before she even comes to me. She might be doing a lot of things that are really on track, and she might be coming in to see me for something entirely different. So this client was like that. She was already very diet aware. She ate small meals of very nutritious food, lots of vegetables, wide variety of vegetables. She wasn't stuck in the carrots, peas, potatoes rut that most North Americans get stuck in. She ate very little grain products and good proteins. She was making good choices overall. She also realized that she needed to use digestive supports. So even before she came to see me, she was using digestive aids. So she had almost no gut symptoms at all, which is absolutely brilliant. Her eyes suggest one other thing. And this predisposition is one particularly to allergies. And that's with all the different things we see in our eyes, it really does say, I want to have allergies, right? So particularly allergies that affect the mucous membranes. So that's what I asked. She indeed has sinus symptoms, especially with spring seasonal allergies. When the weather starts getting nice here, people like to sleep with their windows open, and she can't. She opens the window and she starts getting those pollens. She's going to be so stuffed up, she can't even breathe, so she's not going to sleep. So constitutionally, her irides suggest a predisposition to leaky gut. Even though she has no gut symptoms, her allergies suggest that we should work on healing her gut with something like collagen or bone broth or meat broth. After a course of that, we may want to consider continuing to support her digestion at the stomach level with some betaine hydrochloric acid. Sinus allergies, 99.9% of the time, come from the intestinal tract not being robust, or the intestinal tract is out of balance, right? And we can see those predispositions right here. That helps guide what we want to do with her, right? Helps guide the questions we need to ask her as well. Is this all working for you? Is this all making sense? So why should health professionals use constitutional iridology? And how will it benefit you as a health professional and your clients? That's really important. We can learn all these skills that benefit our clients, but if they simply take more of our time, then there is no benefit to us, unless the market will bear you charging more to cover that time. We need tools that will help us to get our work done very precisely, very succinctly, without losing that rapport with our client and without needing to charge them more, because we're not using more time, we're getting the work done. So constitutional iridology helps us connect the pieces and understand the process of what the body is genetically inclined to do. So it helps us to assess our clients holistically. And we only look at the tiny bits of the iris if we need to. Like, we really work with the whole iris first as the constitution. We don't subdivide the iris unless we absolutely have to. Did you notice on these cases, the only thing I really looked at as a subdivision was the nutritive zone? I didn't need to go and look at the sinuses. She's got symptoms, because I can connect what I already see here with her sinuses anyways. I didn't need to subdivide her. Constitutional iridology helps us as health professionals to see how to balance our clients using cleansing and nourishing. This is important. It helps us understand how to alter programs as warranted. How do we modify programs as we go through with this client? Hopefully, you're seeing your clients more than one time. Hopefully, you're seeing them every month for a few months, 5 or 6 months maybe, and then they're in a good place. So now they can go off on their own for a while. And as we see them month to month, we can assess those same eye photos with the new information of what progress is our client making. And we can alter the program or embellish the program as needed. Constitutional iridology helps us avoid slicing and dicing or subdividing the body into tiny parts. We are not medical doctors who specialize in only one tiny part of the body. We work with the whole body as an integrated unit, and we need to understand those connections. Constitutional iridology helps us do that. So to that end, you will notice that the dynamic iridology map, which is a truly constitutional iridology map, only shows organs and tissues that affects the metabolism in some way. So I don't show subdivisions of the kidney. I only work with the whole kidney. I don't have a herb that works on the renal pelvis, but I do have herbs that work on the kidneys. I'm not showing things like the knee or the hand or the earlobe, right? Those things are not generally metabolically active. Should there be a significant problem, a significant metabolic problem in one of those areas, I can go to any of the other maps that are on the market. For doing a good constitutional assessment, I just want a simple constitutional map. So how should iridology be used in clinical practice? Well, again, it should be used to guide our questions and to help us find better answers. This is a client of mine. She's in her mid-50s, and she came to me having hot flashes. I had not seen her in about 20 years, and she was coming back to me because I had helped her solve a problem in one appointment 20 years earlier. I'm embarrassed to say I did not remember her at all, but she did remember me, which made me very happy. Now, her diet was pretty good. She was doing pretty much a Mediterranean diet, has a very holistic lifestyle. She's good at doing self-care, but she does want to get rid of these hot flashes. So her eyes take me in two different directions. The first is I look at her nervous system. I see lots of indicators here that tell me her nervous system genetically, inherently wants to be stressed. It demands extra nutrients from her actual nervous system right down to her adrenal glands. So I needed to ask questions about, how do you handle stress? What is your sleep like? When things are uptight, she's a social worker. When things are uptight, when you've worked with a difficult client, how do you offload that? And do your hot flashes get worse with stress? And of course, she had all the tools and skills that if she'd had a difficult client, she knew how to unwind and let that go. Her sleep was interrupted by hot flashes and sweats during the night, which is not great. That lack of sleep was leading to depression. And yes, the hot flashes get much worse when she's under stress. She is a hematogenic constitution. So we know that liver and blood are her primary concerns. But we also know that liver does an awful lot to manage our hormones, right? It makes the cholesterol, And then the cholesterol goes to the various glands to be made into hormones. When the hormones have done their job, the liver has to break that down, right? That should just be a quick refresher for you. So we went through her diet, and again, it was pretty good, really pretty good. Fish, good oils, good vegetables, a little bit of fruit. She maybe could have used a little more calories. When we talked about that, she was drinking coffee. And really, the only thing she had out of whack in her diet was her coffee consumption. So I asked her if she would do an experiment. Would she give up that 2 cups of coffee for 10 days as an experiment to see if it would make a difference? I didn't want to start adding supplements to her until I knew if it was the coffee. So she did that. She gave up the coffee for 10 days. When she came back a month after our first appointment, she'd done this little experiment. She was back on the coffee. And I asked her, how did it go? Did you do the experiment? Yes, I did. How did that go for you? She said, well, yeah, I cut it out. And I said, well, what happened? What were your symptoms like? She said, oh, the hot flashes almost completely disappeared. It was really great. I said, that's good. So what have you decided? And she said to me precisely this: coffee is the only thing that's out of line in what I do. You even said that yourself. I really enjoy my coffee. I'm not giving it up. There must be another way. Well, I'm afraid not. She'd already tried hormone replacement therapy with her doctor, and that wasn't working. I don't have anything strong enough to override the damage coffee does to the liver, the adrenals, the B complex, the thyroid. I just can't. So we parted as friends. She was going to look for something else. And I'm really hoping she found something, because there was nothing else I could offer her. Here we have the eye photos of a 64-year-old male. He has been my client for many years. These top photos were taken in 2014. These were taken in 2022, and I've been seeing him typically twice a year since he started coming back in 2022. Now, we can't use these as a before and after comparison. That would be very unethical. They were clearly taken with different cameras, different lighting. We can't use that for before and after. But we can do some of the gross comparisons, like seeing that we've got this big blood vessel still right here, that we've got this one that seems to actually maybe be getting a little bit thicker, right? We can do some just really loose comparisons, but we're not going to really rely on this. So when he came in 2014, we talked about diet, we talked about being physically active, and it was a lot of yeah. Well, he didn't do anything we talked about. So in the meantime, his wife keeps coming in to see me periodically. And in 2022, he comes in a tiny bit of a panic, because now that he's in his mid 60s, his blood tests are coming back as pre-diabetic. His sugars are averaging 7 and can go as high as 7.5. His blood pressure is elevated. His cholesterol is elevated. Nothing is working right. He's falling apart like so many middle-aged men do. And so the doctor had given him metformin, which gave him diarrhea. So they switched him to Glumetza. His potassium is low in his blood. For the elevated blood pressure, he's on hydrochlorothiazide. There will be a spelling test. And that, of course, is a diuretic. He's on Trandolapril, Mylan torvastatin, which is a statin drug to bring the cholesterol down. And because he's on the blood pressure med, he now needs sildenafil or Viagra to be intimate with his wife. Okay. So we've got, let's see, what else did he do? Then they added Jardiance to him because the Glumetza wasn't doing quite well enough. All right, so he's on all of these things. His glomerular filtration rate is a low normal. So he's like in the very low 60s, which means he could be kissing up to some kidney disease. His hemoglobin A1C is 7.2. It should be below 5.7. His cholesterol, though, has come down over the months with the medication. So The elevated hemoglobin A1C suggests insulin resistance, right? We all know that. And that's often a dietary thing. So we needed to do a whole lot of diet work with him. His diet was not good, not good. We've got him eating way more vegetables, including some fermented vegetables. We got him to swap out the toast and peanut butter that he does at breakfast, or the donut with a coffee that he was doing at breakfast. Got him to swap that out for protein at breakfast time, whether it's eggs on a 12-grain sprouted bread, or whether it's a protein shake, which isn't my favorite, but I'd rather have him do a high quality protein shake than a donut any day of the week. We've gotten him to eliminate coffee because we need that coffee functioning on board with us to get that cholesterol regulated. And we needed to increase his vegetables, especially his leafy greens. Now, his biggest challenge is his wife is a flight attendant, and she is gone for 4 days at a time, typically 2 or 3 times a month. And in those 4 or 5 days, he's a bachelor, and he was ordering in an awful lot. And he was doing fast food a lot. So we've really had to work with him to coach him on what are foods that he as a bachelor could prepare that would be much better for him than pizza or a burger from the local burger joint, right? We've also coached him on getting some exercise, especially resistance training. We want him to be using his muscles to help regulate his blood sugars. We want him walking for 15 to 20 minutes after every meal to help regulate his blood sugars, right? This is going to help reduce the insulin resistance. We introduced him to L-arginine and berberine. So after about 3 months, his hemoglobin A1C was down to 5.9. That is amazing. And then the doctor said, well, you keep this up, we'll be taking you off the Glumetza and the Jardians because you're not going to need them if you can keep bringing this down. So we are working on that. I also noticed while he was with me that he constantly clears his throat. Just little, he doesn't even know he's doing it, right? So that tells me that we've probably got a digestive concern. He might have a little reflux going on, which means probably not enough stomach acid, which means not digesting proteins, which means leading to excess acid in the blood, right? Which leads to inflammation, which ultimately leads to insulin resistance, right? See that chain. That's why we need to understand anatomy and physiology. So we added protein digestive aids, so an HCl supplement, and a good broad digestive enzyme. I also suggested we did a quick little assessment for locked diaphragm, which he did have, and I did suggest that he should work with a chiropractor or an osteopath to get that corrected. And, after a few more months, his doctor did remove actually the hydrochlorothiazide and the Glumetza. So we've got him moving in the right direction. And it was the eyes, lymphatic. I looked at the nutritive zone. Those 2 things alone gave me a ton of information. And then we add the sclera to that to understand what we need to do to bring him back into balance. So how do we use iridology? We use it to guide our questions. We use it to create rapport, and we use it to inform our recommendations. Female client, age 44, has a history of polycystic ovarian syndrome. She's got 2 kids, ages 8 and 10. She is 5 feet 10 inches tall and weighs 275 pounds. She's not happy with her weight, and she seems to be unable to lose the weight. Hair growth, she's got hair growth where it doesn't belong on a woman, which is very common with PCOS. She's got fatigue, which is just underscoring that connection between PCOS and type 2 diabetes or insulin resistance. She has depression. She's been on an antidepressant for many years. Her menstrual cycle is not regular. And, it's every 4 to 6 weeks, but it's kind of sloppy. It's not really regular. She was also born without an ileocecal valve. She has rosacea. And she's worked with a nutritionist before, but she didn't like the one-size-fits-all approach. where everybody gets the same handout, same diet. Yeah, that doesn't work. So focusing only on her markers that give us information about she wants help with, and then tracing those back to her symptoms. She's got a biliary constitution. The liver wants to run her show. Liver plays key roles not only in hormones, but in carbohydrate metabolism and balancing blood sugars. It works with the pancreas, right? She is anxiety tetanic. She burns through B vitamins, vitamin C, calcium, and magnesium. She has brown pigments in her eyes, which increase her risk of having the MTHFR anomaly, which of course I can't diagnose. But if she is MTHFR, then I can't use regular Bs. I need to use methylated Bs, right? That should hopefully make sense. In her left iris at 25 minutes, right down here. In zone, let me look at my notes, zone 3, 25 minutes. We've got a little bit of a brown pigment sitting right in here. And in her right iris, zone 3 at 34 minutes. At 34 minutes, right in here, we've got another brown pigment. So this is again saying liver wants to affect ovaries. So it doesn't mean she's got PCOS, but it means there's a predisposition to something with the ovaries. Then when we look at her sclerae, what we see is she's got a fungal labyrinth, she's got a fermentation sign, and there is a slight yellow haze to the white of her eyes. That's really all I needed to see. We got her on a methylated B complex and N-acetylcysteine. We got her off her big box brand gummy melatonin, her gummy vitamin D and her gummy multivites and her gummy vitamin C. Like, what is this besides loaded with sugar? Her food intake was sporadic and sloppy. So we needed to start from scratch and establish good nutrition. She wasn't hungry at breakfast time, so I wasn't going to push for breakfast just yet because that tells me her stomach's not emptying. We had her do for lunch a soup or a salad or a sandwich. Well, that's what she was typically doing, and the sandwich was white bread. So I suggested a homemade broth-based soup, which she was good with. She thought that was a great idea. And to make sure it had a lot of protein and a lot of vegetables in it. For supper, she used to have protein and veg with rice. So I had her drop the rice and instead add more low-carb vegetables to that meal. We worked on helping her to get 2 liters of water a day. And I recommended that she start walking for 5 minutes after each meal and increase that by 2 minutes every week. So that she'd be, next week, she'll do 7 minutes after every meal. And the next week, it'd be 9 minutes. So at 4 weeks, she came in and she said she really liked this low carbohydrate diet. She said her digestion was feeling better, her energy was up, and she noticed her body shape was changing. Her clothes were fitting much looser. She was down 4 pounds. She had stopped her antidepressant on her own. I did not suggest she do that, but she decided she'd been on it long enough. She didn't like it. She wanted off. And she said she actually felt happier without it. And her husband said she was sleeping more peacefully and she was waking up with better energy. So in that week, we added collagen to her program. About 4 weeks later, we had another appointment and she was down another 4 pounds. She had never gone down consistently over 8 weeks before. Her clothes were getting very loose. She was down 2 pant sizes. Her doctor said her labs were the best they've ever been and to keep doing what she was doing. So we're building her program slowly because she had really atrocious dietary habits, right? And so this time we added omega-3. In order to create programs in client sessions using Iridology, we must understand what the client wants help with. We must understand where they are starting from. We must understand how the body works and how organs work with or against each other. This is why it's so important to have anatomy and physiology before you learn Iridology if you want to learn it at a professional clinical level. Understand the importance of, understand the order of importance for what to recommend and avoid so that you don't overwhelm your client with too much information. With the exception of anatomy and physiology, these are all things that I teach in the Dynamic Iridology Assessment System course. Now, for those of you who are interested in learning more about the course, we'll be doing a full-on info webinar on November 18th. You can grab that QR code right there. And if you want to speak with me about the course, if you've already got that college level anatomy and physiology under your belt and you are looking for a fully mentored iridology course to help you learn iridology and apply it in your work, then use the other QR code that you see on your screen. And that will take you to where you can schedule a time to speak with me about the course to find out what your goals are, make sure you've got your A&P, and then we'll talk about the course and how it can benefit you and where it can take you. The Dynamic Iridology Assessment System for Health Professional course is 20 lessons long. We meet once each week for 20 weeks in 2-hour-long live webinar classes that are recorded for playback on demand. So if you have to miss a class, it's not a big deal. You can watch the recording. We do live group mentoring twice each month via webinar. We call that our office hours. We have a private student and alumni online community. So only my students and my graduates are in this community. And it's where they can ask questions. We can have conversations. They can post cases they're working on that they would like some input on. It's a great way to get extra support. My students receive the 225-page digital textbook that I've written and 45 pages of digital study notes that we affectionately call the cheat sheets. And we include mentoring to help you prepare for the IPA certification exam. This is what one of my students said. This is Kimberly Zadalis. She is certified in so many different directions. If you're wondering which iridology course to take, you can stop looking. You found it. Judith Kopp is an excellent instructor with many years of experience. She is a caring and compassionate person who is dedicated to the field of iridology and her students. I personally practice both Eastern and Western physiology medicine and was very impressed with the layout of her program. She makes it easy for her students to balance work, life, and study. You can see a lot more of these kinds of testimonials if you go to the International Iridology Practitioners Association website, click on, I think it's education, and you should find me listed under there. Click on that, and you will see a lot of these kinds of comments from my students. Again, if you've already got anatomy and physiology, and you want to learn iridology and you already know you want to come to me, use this QR code and let's have a conversation. If you're looking for an iridology course and you want to know more about the course without, having a one-on-one just yet, come to this QR code and let's have a conversation. We will end up having a one-on-one conversation if you want to enroll, because enrollment requires you to speak with me directly anyways, so that we can begin getting to know each other. So with that, my friends, thank you so much for being with me. I have truly appreciated it. I hope you have a wonderful rest of your day, and I look forward to speaking with you soon. Bye for now.